The way that Epic Games has been running Fortnite esports over the past year or so has been pretty disheartening to see, and it's also been a very confusing situation. The situation we talk about today is still ongoing as I'm talking to some of the players involved. But yes, guys, as you can maybe tell by the title, today we're talking about Russian players in the Fortnite scene being disqualified from a $4 million event, that being FNCS Copenhagen, slowly upcoming, I believe, here in October. The news broke on Twitter and social media as several Fortnite personalities had sent me this stuff as they were posting that apparently a couple of players, actually multiple players by now, were all of a sudden being disqualified from the $4 million event despite managing to qualify for the event because they were Russian. If you guys do not know, this rule has been in place for quite some time by Epic Games, but clearly was not communicated to the players because although they were Russian, some of these players had relocated to try and qualify and compete in these events outside of Russia, as they were told to do, and they managed to even qualify for a $4 million event. By the way, one person we're talking about today, a duo actually winning FNCS and $200,000, apparently because they're Russian, they won't even be being paid out. That's how crazy this is. As Freezy was one of the first people to talk about this, saying disqualified from FNCS GG because I'm Russian, and other people responding to this as well. I believe his duo being Howley saying also disqualified from Copenhagen. And then according to Boop, we had FNCS winners, Putrick and Swizzy, have officially been taken off the Fortnite competitive website as listed for players for the $4 million Copenhagen LAN. Curb is now also listed as a solo with Firehunter's disqualification. According to the rules, he is not allowed a fill as he has to play the LAN as a solo player. And you can see the list of players out there for this duo LAN. Yes, because your duo has been disqualified, you will continue to compete as a solo player instead. It's like, what is this? Apex Legends, and you feel for these kids, as I've actually talked to one of them, that being Putrick, and apologies for the pronunciation, guys. You guys know it's not my strong suit. As far as what I've been told from Putrick himself, as he himself is also taken to Twitter, after being disqualified from this multi-million-dollar LAN, after winning FNCS and $200,000, he has then been notified that not only was he disqualified, but he won't be paid out his prize earnings because he's a Russian player. After talking to him, yes, he is a Russian player, although at the time when he competed in FNCS, he left Russia and competed out of Belarus, where he still currently resides. And the biggest confusion of this, and you can look at the rule set, certainly Epic Games has had this in their rule set, but you still allowed this player to play and to qualify and to win, and then to make it to this multi-million-dollar LAN event, and then finally it's communicated to him that, hey, oh, by the way, we can't pay you, and you're disqualified. Sorry, you're Russian. It's, for him, the biggest issue was a lack of communication. Like, the fact that it got to this point is the biggest issue. He even told me, oh yeah, if I didn't win FNCS, I never would have known it was a problem. It was because I was Russian and I won, and because the prize earnings were so large, that is why he came on their radar. And so by definition, maybe breaking the rules, which is fair, but the rules and how they are actually, communicated to the players, because you have a player who is clearly trying to work and make amends with your rule book because he's a Russian player. And unfortunately, during a time of war, these players are going to suffer the consequences for the country of which they reside. And you guys can have your own thoughts and opinions on that. But I do feel for teenagers who are competing for their jobs, and unfortunately, the circumstances they are in, the country they were born in, and something outside of their control is impacting their careers. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for those impacted by the actions of their country. And that's just me. You guys can defer from that all you want. But in Putrick's case, you're not just talking about his job and career. You're talking about a lot of money on the line and a kid who is trying to make right by leaving his own country just to compete. And he was trying to make amends for your rule book. And even then, it wasn't good enough. And it was communicated far too late. Rise responded to me saying, there's been a rule since the start of the war that Russian players are not eligible for prizes at all. The issue is that this year it wasn't clearly stated in the rules that qualification to international events was classified as a prize, as it wasn't in this selection of the rules. It hasn't happened to all Russian players, as people like Malabuka have moved out of the country to compete and currently resides in Belarus, which he did due to this rule. The issue really appears to be the timing of the communication and the fact that it hasn't been in the rules until now. I've also seen tweets about Denmark Denmark not issuing visas to Russian players, which could be a cause. And Malabuka actually responding to Putrick saying, there's a difference between you and me. I'm a Russian citizen, but I'm also a resident of Serbia from a legal point of view and spent almost 2 years already here and playing all my tournaments here. You must be outside of Russia at least 6 months out of a year to be considered a non-Russian resident. But then you had Putrick, who competed for this event and he qualified for this event while outside of Russia. So then I'm left to assume that maybe he hasn't been outside of Russia and been in Belarus for a long enough time. But for me, what he has told me is there's been no communication. He's been trying to contact Epic Games, been stuck talking to customer support or bots and not real people to get back to him on what he has to do to make this right. And that's just where it sucks. And I understand it cannot be easy for Epic. I'm sure there's some legal stuff I don't know about when it comes to paying out these things, or maybe even visas getting issued for travel when it comes to Copenhagen land. If he is technically still a Russian resident, even though he's been in Belarus for a few months, I understand it's probably high above the difficulties. But even then, there's got to be something to do here to even just pay out the FNCS prize pool because you allowed him to qualify and win in the first place, or something. It's a very difficult situation for all parties involved, I'm sure, but I'm still left feeling very bad for the players. And when it comes to the way that Fortnite has run their esports, it's just not surprising at this point that it's come to this point that these kind of things are still happening. So what do you guys think about this? I can't imagine. I can't imagine losing out on that much money and that big of an opportunity in a very confusing situation. So we'll see any updates on this. I'll keep you all posted. What do you think about it? Till next time, drink up. All right. I'll see you back here sometime soon.